Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really love being here. I used to live here just down the road, so revisiting this is a beautiful thing. And I love all the organizational energy. I love the international energy in the room. Thank you so much, Ronitsa, for an incredible job of organizing and making us all feel welcome today. And today, we're going to talk about what we're doing, who we are, how we communicate. Communication is a conversation. Are you? Who is in this room? You are all communicators, but you're so much more than that. You're not just taking information from one place, packaging it, and shipping it off to another place. You're not just taking the words, crunching it down, and shoving it through. You're creating a conversation. You're the starting point of a first iteration of a communication between one human and another. And whether this is one human to many, many to many, many to one, it doesn't matter. Still, the communication. And as I was here watching and having a little coffee and listening to the chatter, I was reminded that even though we are in these enormous institutions, these buildings that seem very daunting and inhuman, each of us is extremely human. And especially in the time of AI, we're talking about machine intelligence. That's usually what I'm talking about today. It's not at all that. Our humanity is what's special, and our humanity is what is going to pull us through. So think about remain. Also, each of you serve as a communicator. To your people that are in your job, but it forms a community. It forms a group of people that come together with a shared purpose and meaning and workflow to do a certain job. This is your community. You are, in part, responsible for their happiness, whether they that they need to do their job. This is on you. And it's also your responsibility. Connected, welcome, belonging, and aligned with their purpose. It's a pretty big job. Your job is also inform, but to make people really understand why they're. And part of this, understanding who it is that you're dealing with. How can you have a conversation with people that you don't understand, you don't know? This is your community, this is your tribe. We don't have tribes anymore. This is our new system of tribe. And a communication is not just a one-way street. A communication is about connecting people who are very, very different. We are all from different places, all from different countries. Many of us come from countries where English is not the spoken language, or French or German, and you're operating on another communication platform, which is not necessarily your own. How do you build a bridge to connect what you're saying with your community? So all of in your head at the same time as you're trying to do your job. And there's a lot of back and forth. This email isn't correct. Change this one word, this terminology. Sometimes you can get lost in the details and the minutiae of the job when you're dealing with this terminology, that terminology. But in the end, if you remember that it's about human communication, building bridges from one group of humans to another, it can get through these kind of daily details that can sometimes be a little bit difficult to manage. So, as I was, and everyone here so nicely, my name is Fiona Passantino. I am an AI integration specialist. I go around teaching people about what AI is for non-technical people, for people who are not data analysts or engineers. This is very, very satisfying to me. But today we're not going to be talking about AI at all. We're going to be talking communication. And I have a couple of books. I brought them with me in case people are interested. I love the comic book format because it's, to me, the perfect way to communicate. It's the marriage of visuals and micro messaging that together form a story. And we humans love stories. That's how we. It's how we remember facts. And so to me, the comic book, I'm also here in the land of comic books, and it feels very good to be here. Comic books are a perfect way to communicate very, very serious information. All right, we humans, we need disruption in our lives. We need things to change, and we need to and evolve ourselves. Because if we didn't evolve, we would still be writing like this. This is how we used to communicate. And after this, we started carving on stone tablets. And after that, we would use papyrus parchments. We would use ink quills to communicate, press and written books to communicate. So we are always in this flowing river of change. And we're in it right now, too. We're about to jump off into a wonderful, hopefully wonderful, probably also quite scary, new. Maybe in 20 years' time, we won't be communicating at all because we have our AI embedded chips in our brain, and we just have to think, and everybody instantly understands. Wouldn't that be heaven or not? But it's coming, and the transformations are all around us all the time. Our stories today. Back in our caveman days, we didn't have very complicated things to communicate. Don't eat those berries, they'll kill you. Don't leave the cave at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom, or a bear will eat you. These people in the tribe are good. Those people in the other tribe are bad. Things are a bit more complex. We're talking about transitions to agile. We're talking about what are parameters and weights and algorithms. We're talking about things that we can't possibly communicate with just a little bit of text on a papyrus. We need these high-level tools to explain what it is we're trying to do. Our working landscape is also not always the easiest one in which to communicate. There's always a context. Conversation. It's not always slate that everybody's in their perfect state of mind. Every single one of us is coming from. We all have personal lives going on that are affecting how we see, how we understand, how we receive the messages. As a reality, passing in and out like a needle through a cloth between digital and real world. Right now, we're having a real experience. This is a long communication. But a lot of the time, we're passing into our digital worlds. And so half the time, perhaps more than half the time, we're experiencing the world through a digital layer, a digital lens. And this clouds what we're doing. It might be that there are communicating through a digital, that you're in this other world. Like today, you're 100% present physically here, having a live conversation. But most of the time, and more of the time, you'll be communicating through this digital veil. There's also the context of this divide that we're witnessing between leadership and workers. Leadership is expecting things in many ways to return to pre-pandemic ways of working, and workers are rejecting this and wanting to work with fuller flexibility, more mobility, more opportunities to be supported and a divide that you, as communicators, have to bridge. Many times you're communicating something from leadership onto a working population that you have to bridge a larger and larger divide. The whims of leadership and the wants of the people have to somehow connect, and you are that connecting point. Come into a room, nobody there, and we'll that is. What is you're not communicating tells us that we're supposed to be here. And this is this kind of disconnect that is part of your working context every single day. And in so we have to deal with the usually people fall under one of these four categories. So if you think of your own community, the people that you're having the conversation with, they're usually going to be one of these four types. You'll have the traditionalist, which are the ones who really love being in the office. Come there every day, show up. Always just the way things used to be. They need a nice structure. They like the physical hum and flow of the day. They like coming to work and leaving work, entering the subway, returning to their lives at home. This is the traditional working way. You also have somebody called the task guided, which are the people that decide on any given day, what am I doing today? What is important for me? And what environment will best support that, what I do? So sometimes working at home is the ideal environment for this kind of task. And sometimes I really need to be in the office to get this thing done. Then you'll have the freedom, who will just work anywhere. A nice cafe or a hotel room or a train or an airplane or an office with a desk, a hot desk, it doesn't matter. The actual environment is part of the stimulus of the day and sparks creativity and new ideas. And if it weren't for this kind of constant change of our environment, we would have no ideas at all and we'd be very boring to talk to. Then you have somebody who you will never see, the fully remote, the other end of the spectrum of the traditionalist. Don't find this person at the elevator. You will never see them. This person may be hired from another part of the world with no expectation of ever coming into the office. That's this new world that we're in. This is another part of your community. You have to reach these people too. The ones that are at their desks every single day from 9 to 5, you know where to find them. How do you communicate with the fully remote? How do you bridge all of these different people and form a conversation where everybody's included, welcomed, informed, and inspired? The other part that you have to deal with are communicating in a language that's not their own. To send a communication. And you have to be sure that it's clear enough that it's being received on the other end by people who are also not communicators, who don't necessarily speak the language of the transmission. You can see that most of this English spoken in the world is spoken by people who don't grow up speaking it. And it's something magical that happens at the age. It's a language, a native language, and you can never really get that back. Everybody has a native language. Very, very few of us have two native languages. We are actually growing up speaking two. Very few, almost nobody has a third native language. It's almost impossible because after the age of 7, your brain closes down some of its receptors and it doesn't allow any more languages to come in to be. But if you think about English, which is our global language, nobody owns it. It's spoken mostly by people. Another context, another way of seeing the world. Language forms how, not just how we understand facts. Non-native speakers get about just the amount of English that's spoken. Non-native vastly outnumber the native speakers. So as a native English speaker, that's me, I have no control over the language which is used, which is, let's say, my native language. I might notice things that are funny and say, hey, that doesn't sound like English to me, but it's actually correct because it's the context in which it's spoken. So if I'm here in Brussels and I hear some certain terminology that I think, this doesn't sound exactly like English, I'm wrong because it's the term that is used in this context. So as a native speaker, you're actually in the minority and you're the one who has to adjust and adapt to the language being spoken. That's clear. We're all coming from different places. But in fact, humans are more the same than any other animal on Earth. We share more of our DNA than any other animal, more than cats, more than dogs, more than chimpanzees, more even than dolphins. So the connective of our human species, than any other animal. So this is what we rely on. We can fall back on the idea that we have this common human capability to connect because we are so similar. We all want the same things. We all have the same needs. Work at home. At the same time, what else has happened in our landscape, our communication community is undergoing stress. We're still recovering from what the pandemic did to us, to our working and private lives, and we're bringing this with not machines. So the stress that we're experiencing with all the transition and all the oncoming disruption and change and things that we have to know, combine that with our digital environments. We're being pinged constantly. Are giving us notifications constantly. Our cell phones are giving us directives constantly. We check our feeds constantly. We check our socials. We check in with our kids. We check in with our friends constantly. This merger of our personal office lives and our a little bit crazy. They're stressing us out. That's why our stress levels, our exhaustion, our depression is rising. This comes back when you look at our engagement numbers. We are still dealing with a decreased level of employee engagement. And a lot of times people were saying, well, this is a result of the pandemic. This is natural. We're all a little bit depressed. We're disengaged because we're not together. But it's actually not true. Here we are, a year, and we're still seeing increased levels of disengagement, people who are actively unhappy at work. Is it all of the environment? Is it the context that we had from before? Or is this something else that we can't really explain? So our active levels of disengagement are rising. At the same time, our active engagement, basically our happiness, joy, inspiration at work, is decreasing at the same time. And it's now clear that it's not directly affected by the pandemic. The pandemic definitely had an impact on our happiness. But now that we're out of it, we're not experiencing that uptick. All of this is part of in which we have to do our jobs. We have to communicate and connect. And having this in the back of our minds gives us something to jump off from. So it's not just a place to work and come, do your job, clock out, and leave again. People who are coming to work are expecting to be. We need this community to feel like we are part of the whole. So I'll switch over about how to form these conversations. We've talked a little bit about all the challenges of the background, where we're coming from, but now what we can do to start forming those conversations. So really easy things, hopefully we can do right away. The number one tool to grade actually listening. This seems counterintuitive because my job is to issue missives, to project words at other people. Why should I have to listen? Because that's not my job. I'm here to communicate. Well, the conversation isn't just talking. Conversation is also listening. If you don't know how that communication is going to land, how do you know what to say? Do you remember the last time that you really lost yourself in a conversation? It could have been just with one other person. You're sitting in a bar, in a cafe, where you're so engrossed with what's going on that the entire world drops away. Your coffee goes cold, the beer that you're drinking goes flat. And this is because you're in an iterative conversation, which means while this person speaks, the other person is actively listening, receiving what is being said. When you cease speaking, the other person has time to contemplate and then respond. Then you are in the listening role. And so it goes on like that. Not that person is in control of where the It goes back and forth, and it goes to new places because it's adjustable, flexible, it changes. And only listening will allow this kind of conversation to move in this way. What do I mean by iterative? If you look at an actual conversation, you can see that it kind of bounces into one place, which means if you are listening, you're open to the information that's being given by the other person. Now, traditional communication in the roles that you are used to doesn't work like this. Your job isn't your job is to ram it through. Tell people what they need to do. It's not important to listen. That's the traditional way of looking at it. But how do you know that it actually reached its mark unless you can hear it fall, unless you can hear the reaction? My proposal is with there is an equal and opposite reaction, and that with every outgoing communication that there are built-in listening channels waiting for the response. How did it land? Did you understand what was being said? Is there something wrong with what is being said? Do you have a problem with what is being said? Can you suggest a better way of saying this? Do you have anything more to say? That way, we can rework it and send it through again. Maybe a different part of the communication needs to be hammered through in a different way. What I like to call radical listening is working with your community and taking every single opportunity that you have to ask questions about what they want. And that way, you're building trust in the experience of the conversation. What do I mean by radical listening? Okay, let's say you have it's very small. You want to know what to serve for the event, what kind of muffins to serve. A quick poll will ask muffins, do you like blueberry, vanilla, whatever. A quick poll, 30 seconds long, somebody hits the key, what they like best, and voila, the next day, what do they see? They see the that they asked for. This seems, but it actually is a very important tool for building trust in your community. It shows people that we're listening, and that we're listening radically and deeply, also for little tiny things. How you do everything, which means small things, is also the way that you do the big things. So if you are concerned about the needs of your community in terms of what muffins they like, then how do you think you're going to do the big things? Big things like hybrid working, policy, explaining AI governance. That's the big, but you're building trust. And then you say, well, listening. We do a survey. We ask all these questions and we crunch down the numbers and we get these wonderful pie charts. We're listening to our community, all right. But is it really listening? Or are we ticking a box? Supposed to do. There are many, many ways of listening. A survey is a great way of listening, but only if you have the trust of your community to start with. Otherwise, you're not going to get the right information. There are many, many ways of radical listening. A cultural deep dive is one of these ways where you can take a team, really deeply, making spot checks of longer what he's actually expecting. So if you sit next to somebody at lunch that you don't even know, and you start talking to them, listening, how are things going? Do you understand what's going on? How do you feel about your community? How do you feel about working here? This gives you a lot of very good information. If you do this over time in a structured way, you suddenly have a data set, even if it seems very flexible and one-to-one. This is the kind of a cultural deep dive. If you do this over the course of 6 months, you suddenly have a very powerful data set that's built on information that not everybody can get, and nobody will provide in a survey. An open mic is something, and it's seeping its way all over. Started in the corporate world. It's a town hall with a microphone, no agenda, that's it. And the only thing that is meant to be done for leadership is to just listen, just take a seat. The microphone is passed around. People are welcome to say whatever they like, positive, negative, it doesn't really matter. But the act of listening, of being present and holding space, is what it's all about. You're not there to allocate funds. You're not there to push through an agenda or to work through a bunch of bullet points. You're just there to be present with your community and listen. There are other. I love bean voting. It's really fun. That's really, really. Empty glass jars, asking a very simple question, and then a whole pile of beans. Take and put in the jars. And these are trust. It's about the visuals. It's the optics. You're showing your community, hey, I want to hear what you have to say. What do you like for lunch? Sandwiches, a quiche, a soup, a salad. Pick one, throw in a bean. That's what we'll serve for the getaway day next week. It's ridiculous. But then they come to the getaway day and they see the quiche that they asked for. Okay. There's something going on here. There's listening going on here. So this is a very, very optical way that makes a point. What I call a co-creative police, where people can actively build rules for their own working teams. So if you have a space like a Miro board or any of these kind of digital co-working spaces, it's very, very easy to collaboratively create rules. And this can be large or small. This is another form of listening in a digital space. All of these put together. Listening. You can use one or none or all or together, but they form. Really makes one thing clear to your community. We hear you. We see you. You're important. And then you see communication is more of a kind of an endless loop. It's not just one thing from point A out to point B, but it's a organic, changing, looping process that enriches itself as it goes and changes as it goes. If one micro messages out and allows for listening to come back in, you can send another micro message out that's just a little bit different. And you see this as a looping process. All right. The next variant is using visual communication. This is an extremely powerful tool. And it's actually, if you look back at the history of our communication, our very, very first communication, if you think back on the cave, was a bunch of pictures and the visuals. And visuals are the most effective way that we can communicate information and facts. I know from my work in Brussels that text is a very loved way of communicating, especially a lot of text without images. I understand. However, it's effective than images. If you're forgetting about whether we like pictures or not, I do, I love the comic books, but if you don't care about what is liked, it's just purely more language of the brain. When we see things, we also is extremely quick. We can process the information coming from a visual, process it with text. And there's some reasons why our core memories in a way that text does not. And this has something to do with our biology, with our evolution, and it has something to do with how we interact with the world. We are visual creatures. And how does work of the brain? How does the brain work? Why are visuals so valuable, so important? Also, if you think back to your memories, some of your strongest, most powerful memories are almost always attached to a visual and an emotion. Now, when I say that platform of our brain, if you look at the way the brain works, these sections here, this is the place that's responsible deep core of instinct. So that's why we call it the lizard brain. It doesn't language, it doesn't have words. Our sensory thalamus is the thing that takes in the incoming information and then sends it around. It's basically our executive functioning of the brain. Now, when it deals with a whole bunch of text, it has to process it. It has to send it to the lab to get it broken down into things that this guy can understand, right? So it passes a slow route. It goes through breaks it down into pieces that it can understand, and then sends it back to our emotion. And then we can have an emotion, we can attach that emotion to our memory centers, and that's how we incorporate text slow, and it doesn't always connect with that emotion. On the other hand, work to be processed by our reasoning centers, by our abstract translation. It goes straight into our emotions. These emotions connect with our deep memory, so we can store that kind of information in a very, very powerful and effective way in the layers of our brain that last. We see our language is becoming more visual every day. How many of you have had an entire conversation only with emojis on your phone? I have. You can actually have an entire conversation. What's for dinner? What time is for dinner? Do you want veggies? I don't know. Only using visuals. Immediate emotional connection to a visual that we see. That's why emojis are so powerful. We can hate them, we can love them, but we still use them. And a lot of times we think, few years, visuals may very explaining what the pandemic was or how to prevent transmission using text. We were using visuals. We were using basic iconography to explain distance, mask wearing. This was not given to us in the form of long pieces of text. These were bold, bright visuals that were everywhere. If you remember walking around, you are bombarded with these bright, sharp visuals. Walk this way, stand over here, wear this mask, wash your hands. There are bubbles when you wash. And take your temperature this way. Use hand sanitizer this way. This was visual communication, and it was highly, highly effective. Okay. This is a hard one in your line of work. I see a lot of people smiling and laughing, yeah, because this one is a tough one. But this is reduce at all. Reduce the number of words. This is how we feel most of the time when we're at work. And it keeps on coming, and there's just so many words. And then if you add all of the other incoming missives that you get, your short messages, your calendar alerts, and so on, we don't have time to read, but also this overwhelm that we feel when we look at large amounts of text, large amounts of information. We have an immediate emotional reaction, which is to pull back and to not look, because you need to allocate time. In order to get through a document of 15 pages, allocate half an hour when you're not disturbed, when you don't have bells and notifications, when you don't have to go by your kids asking when the pizza is arriving. How many of us have an uninterrupted 30 minutes of our day when we know that we will not be interrupted? Very few of us. I certainly have a hard time finding that time. But if we want to be understood and we want to have our messages reach the people that we're talking to, land, this is not the way. Slide, a recent slide that I happened to see. It was amazing to me. Presenting this slide also did this and read it to you as you were reading it. Now, humans cannot read and listen at the same time. Our brains aren't that smart. That we say we're multitaskers. We listen or read. And if we're going to be reading, we have to have a totally focused environment. So even reading this, if you have a focused environment, you're not going to be able to get through it because your brain is not trained our brains to be into, which means reading something like this is getting harder and harder as humans as we evolve and become more micro message oriented. Okay. So what I generally tell to people is, if at all possible, cut it in half. I promise not to talk about AI, but here we go. When we're using generative AI, it will use a lot of words to get something across. About double or triple the number message across. So that's why generative AI has a little bit of, it needs a little bit of work. It's like using a pasta sauce straight out of a can. It tastes horrible, but if you add, what you need and reduce the number of garbage things in there, it's actually a little bit palatable. Reduce by 50%, because just like supply and demand, the less you have of something, the more value it has to the listener. If you're having to learn how to explain it in a calm and practical way, tell it to your kids. If the kids understand it, borrow some from the neighbor, she'll be so happy. Say, take my kids. Right, exactly. Yeah. So if your policy about AI governance that you're going to be talking about next week, on the right track. If you're trying at their phone or looking at their watch, it's not landing. But you basically have to talk to people as if they are wise children, and then you know that it's landing somewhere. And then you cut it by another 50% if you can. Reduce all the filler words. Just reduce the number of words that you have. The chances of having it land will be higher. All right. Or inclusion. Everybody in. Language is political. Language is determinative. If you use language, extremely complicated words, include as many people as you can. The simplest word you can use in a sentence is the best. You don't need to have extremely long words to make a point. We are all very different. Not just what we see about us, but what we don't see about us. And so the language that we use, that we're all part of the conversation, is a very delicate dance. We use language. We all have different ways of thinking. We all find ourselves somewhere on the autism ADHD spectrum. Everybody is somewhere on there. We're all creatives or not. We are all introverts or extroverts. We all have our own ethnicity, our nationalities, our backgrounds. We have a certain religion or lack of. We all come at it with a different way. The choice of language that we use is very, very important in our inclusion. And each one of our communities will have this need to be seen, to be respected, to be. And the language that we use, if it's inclusive, you're building a community with the words that you use. You belong here. Your purpose is with us. And it's going to have a different way of celebrating and a different way of eating and enjoying the parts of life that make it worth living. So what are the holidays that are being celebrated? This seems ridiculous and so small. Who cares? Thanksgiving, Diwali, we don't do that kind of thing here. It shows a very different message. That everybody is welcome here, and that whatever it is that you celebrate in your personal life, the country that you come from, is fascinating to us. We want to learn more of it. Are you fasting for Ramadan? Tell me more. Eating because it's Thanksgiving. Passover, what does that mean? Fantastic. What does that mean for you? Tell us more. It's very handy to know when you're planning your events, because by listening and understanding, welcoming your full community, you can provide that community with what they need. This seems ridiculous. Who cares if you're coming to an event and you see vegetarian or halal or whatever it is? This is a minor detail. Yes, engagement is in the details, but it shows, it tells you are seen. We are that 2 of 100 of you are halal. Therefore, we have it here for you. It's optics. It's just telling somebody what it is that you believe. One little case. That was the last large corporate that I worked at. They have a very distinct policy of celebrating Christmas and Easter and Western New Year's, and that's it. And the croissants and the jus d'orange. So we were happy to celebrate Bastille Day and wave the flags and eat, and that was fine for us. But then I was the community manager at the time. I was asking, well, when are we celebrating Ramadan? And they looked at me like I was insane. And they said, well, we don't do that here. It's like, well, but your community does. You don't, but they do. And during the month of Ramadan, it's also a Dutch tradition. When you have a birthday, you bring an entire crate of cookies or muffins to work, and you give them out for your birthday. That's what we do. If you have a birthday that falls in the month of Ramadan, your colleague's desk, and you're putting muffins on their table, you're expecting them to take a giant. That's the normal thing in Holland. How do you explain to always appreciated or done? What do you do? First of all, you have to educate people. What is Ramadan? And people doing what they're doing. And it's really nice to listen to if you take the time to listen, understand what they're doing, why. That approach. So we started Ramadan within Danone, whereby we inform people a few weeks beforehand. We said, this is what's coming. It's a really exciting, very, very spiritual time. Certainly ask your colleagues if they're observing. And when it's your turn to bring your muffins, just make a little doggy bag. Just make a little bag that says, eat me after sunset. And then you don't ask any questions. You just put it on the person's desk. They'll take it. They'll get it in their bag and they'll eat it when the it's meaning. It means so much. We had such unbelievable engagement from this campaign that it is now part of the grondwet, which is almost the constitution. And it was something that was so small and yet so powerful and effective. These people who were observing Ramadan actually stepped forward and created a Ramadan engagement committee, and they started educating people. And there were even people who were fasting with them for the month because of just pure solidarity reasons, curiosity, and maybe they wanted to lose a little weight. I don't know. But it was an extremely effective campaign, and it made everybody feel just a little bit closer, just a little bit more welcome, a little bit more connected. Curious judgment. The final one. Why you're doing what you're doing. Why you get out of bed in the morning. We all need this. We all get out of bed in the morning. We're not here for the paycheck. I mean, we're not paid that much. We're here for purpose. We're here to be doing something meaningfully. If we're here for the paycheck, we would probably not be working for the commission at all, but we'd be probably working for a tobacco company or big oil. There's a reason we're all here, not making something that is extremely important to our European community. then there's fake purpose. We all have been exposed to the fake purpose part, where you see a focus groups miss it. Is what we do. I would say more of this in the corporate sphere than in the non-governmental or European sphere, where have these very chirpy, very affirmative statements about our purpose. And usually the people who write these are not employed by the company at all, but they are highly well-paid marketing agencies that put together exactly the right words that people need to hear. But this isn't our purpose. This isn't why we actually go to work. We're not there to sell certain products or to create share. The annual report shows 25% gain in our supply chain efficiency. That's not my purpose, right? So if you employ the purpose, you'll be amazed at how easy it is to come up with a few keywords that everybody shares, because everybody chooses to come to work in a certain organization for similar reasons, no matter where they're from. And that's the starting point for your purpose. And that translates to the organization. It's very easy for a very high impact leader to feel a little bit lost. But a strong purpose will connect all of these individuals, and that purpose is shared by every level of the organization. Because without the intern, the leader will not be properly briefed on what they're supposed to say for the event. And without the intern, there wouldn't be croissants to eat outside, and we'd all be concerned. Everybody matters. Really important. The leadership is there to serve interns and back and forth. And we need this. We can't just operate in a vacuum. There's only so much energy in us to go from meeting to meeting to meeting without having that little reminder of, oh, that's why I'm doing this. Now I remember why I took this job in the first place. And I remember why I got on the metro this morning, separating me from my kids or my family to be here. And just to recap, use visuals, cut it in half. Build purpose. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Do we have time for a couple questions, or 2 or 3 questions? Okay, great. Anything that they're struggling with? Yeah.